Thanks, Mr. Speaker. I'll be sharing my time with my colleague, the Member of Parliament for South Okanagan, West Kootenay. 1989 was the year that I graduated Trent University. We'd been studying the Mackenzie Valley Pipeline Inquiry. We'd been studying renewable energy and pipeline politics for years in environmental and resource studies. I really believe we were in a new time of understanding that forcing projects on communities that don't want it and not recognizing Indigenous rights and title, that was a time that was behind us. 1989 was also a politically powerful year. The Berlin Wall fell. It was the year of the Velvet Revolution. Tiananmen Square, the democracy uprising and then the brutal police response. It was also the year of the Exxon Valdez spill in Alaska, which hit the headlines in a phenomenal way. It was a time of great political imperative for change and activism, and a real time of hope. And yet, I've spent my entire professional life since fighting bad energy megaprojects. Whether it's nuclear plants in Ontario or the GSX pipeline through the southern Salish Sea, the Duke Point power plant right off Mudge Island, took us 4.5 years as a community to fight that pipeline and power plant off. We did, but I hear again and again from my home island of Gabriola and also from the riding that I'm honored to represent, Nanaimo Ladysmith, how hungry people are to start acting on implementation of a sustainable, renewable, locally based, worker-focused economy and stopping fighting off projects that we don't want. And honestly, I thought that getting elected to this Parliament and beating Stephen Harper and the Conservatives would be what we would need to stop the Kinder Morgan pipeline. I am frankly astonished that we are still here 2.5 years later, still debating last century's power project, energy project that's been approved for all the wrong reasons. And to our deep disappointment on BC's coast, to have the Liberal government with all the goodwill behind it and all the Sunny Way promises and all the innovation promises, to have it be that party that is investing already $4.5 billion of taxpayer money into an obsolete 60-plus-year-old leaky pipeline, let alone committing us, perhaps even our Canada Pension Plan money, into the expansion of the pipeline to increase by 7-fold the bitumen oil tankers that are going through the ridings that we represent. I'm astonished that we are here. And I'm delighted that our leader, Jagmeet Singh, and that our party, the NDP, has brought this motion and taken over the agenda today to be able to talk about our hope for a renewable, sustainable, worker-focused economy and all the benefits that can come from that. We've got a lot of local examples in my riding already of just great success stories, despite all the impediments that have been put up by the BC Liberal Party over the last 16 years in BC and the Conservatives in power federally for 10 years. Despite that, the local innovation is something I'm really proud of. Nanaimo's Harmac Pacific Mill has a generation capacity of 55 megawatts of power that they use from biofuels and waste wood in their facility. The Greater Nanaimo Pollution Control Centre captures methane, which would be a fairly calamitous greenhouse gas exaggerator. They are converting it to electricity, powering 300 homes. Nanaimo's home to Canadian Electric Vehicles, which for 25 years has been making industrial vehicles, including an electric Zamboni. Who knew? Electric Bobcats. That's all been happening for some time in our riding. We have just got people right now in Nanaimo moving into a fantastic affordable housing facility, just built a beautiful construction by Nanaimo Aboriginal Centre. It's on Bowen Road. It has a passive energy design, which was actually started in Canada, I believe, in Saskatchewan. Our federal government failed to keep the program going. Passive energy program moved to Europe, where it's really been expanded and innovated, and the Nanaimo Aboriginal Centre Affordable Housing Project uses 80% less energy than a traditional home construction does, so the residents have less expenses. It makes their living more affordable, but it's also clean and wonderful air quality, something that we're really proud of. And this is a Canadian-wide phenomenon. Canada's green building sector has $128 billion in gross annual income, and the green building sector employs more direct full-time workers than forestry, mining, oil, and gas combined. That's not a story that we tell every day, and we need to say it again and again. This is where the jobs are now, and if we have the right priorities and support the right trend and direction, we can do even better with that. The Vancouver Island Economic Alliance has an annual summit. A few years ago, I talked to energy entrepreneurs at that conference in Nanaimo. They said that at the time, the provincial and federal government put more barriers in front of their business than anywhere that they have seen or experienced in the world. So we've got local entrepreneurs trying to manufacture and sell on Vancouver Island and across Canada, and they are having to both move their manufacturing as well as their sales focus internationally because they can't do the business at home, which is just so discouraging. Of all the things Canada should be able to do well at, that just hasn't been one of them. And another great example that we're so proud of in Nanaimo, Vancouver Island University is right now building a geothermal project. They are inserting down into old coal mining shafts in our riding. As you know, Mr. Speaker, Nanaimo was really built on coal originally. To have that coal history now move to geothermal, where they're going to be able to pull from the natural heat of the ground to be able to heat their whole university complex, new residences. It's going to be a real showcase, and it's going to be a way to show young people the possibilities and innovation and the jobs that they can generate. I've also met people out in the community, Ladysmith in particular, where we have a lot of people that have been migrant workers within our own country, moving from Alberta, or living on Vancouver Island, flying to Alberta for work. Very dangerous, hard work, hard to be away from your family. Often people come home with addictions or with injuries. So to now bump into people that have transitioned, whether they learned vertical drilling in the oil and gas sector, and they're now bringing that back to our region to utilize that same technology and that same expertise that they have for geothermal power, or for simply doing residential solar installations. Or I just hear these young men in particular say to their friends, come home. It's safer, the work is steady, you can sleep in your own bed, you can keep your family together. And that's the work that our governments should be doing to encourage such a transition. While I have the floor, I need to do a little bit of myth busting on the Kinder Morgan investment. We have just keep hearing, including just now, hearing the parliamentary secretary say we need to find Asian markets. Well, crude exports from Vancouver to China topped out in 2011. They were, at that time, only 28% of the outbound shipments. By 2014, they dropped to 6%. By 2016, they were essentially zero. Right now, we do not have Asian markets hungry for our unrefined bitumen. It's simply not borne out by the facts. We also hear about the imperative for jobs. In fact, the experts say that every time Canada ships 400,000 barrels of unrefined bitumen abroad, it is exporting approximately 19,000 refining and upgrading jobs every year to other countries. And the $15 billion that we are apparently losing by not accessing foreign markets, that again has been rebutted again and again. Robin Allen has done this powerfully. The Natural Resources Minister keeps saying it's a $15 billion differential. In fact, the original source was Scotiabank. They say 7, and they are a deep investor in Kinder Morgan. And so we must be extremely careful about agreeing with any of the Prime Minister's promises about economic output. It is to our deep dismay on the part of British Columbians that this investment, which it risks the $2.2 billion fisheries and aquaculture sector. It risks tens of thousands of jobs in British Columbia that exist right now, whether that's in film or tourism or in fishing, billions of dollars in economic activity that it results from a clean coast. So please, to this government, let's innovate, truly innovate green jobs in the next century's work and energy, not the Kinder Morgan pipeline.